don't know what all that stuff does to my body.
Yeah, I
So
feel.
I just go with black.
But I lately I've been on this Celsius craze though. Like I
Dude,
thought
are
it was
those
just a
bad for you?
phase. It says it's good for you right there on the can. It increases metabolism, elevates fat.
Oh, yeah, that's true, dude. So I watched a video on them. It was like a video essay. So Celsius used to be, that was their thing. Like before they went through this rebranding, is the brand was known as, it made like medical claims for weight loss because it like has, I don't know what the ingredient is, but it actually, like, to a degree there is truth to it, but it's not like weight loss. But and then
Yeah,
they spun it and they were like, it's just for like high energy. But yeah.
some of those weight loss things are super shady though. So I
Oh
wonder if
yeah.
that's just like
You want to start a business?
it makes it
Herbalife?
fast.
Introduce yourself and what you do and your ties to Versix.
Yeah, so I work for Pickleball Central and have for a few years now. I started out in their warehouse and then ultimately moved into what I really want to do, which is make content and help people kind of get the right paddles for them. And Pickleball Central for the longest time was like one of the best suppliers for just classic run of the mill quality pickleball products. Like kind of a generic brand, like you've heard of things like maybe Rally or Champion, Graphites, kind of some of the OGs in paddle performance. Um, and we wanted to just kind of revitalize that somewhat, and Versix was born. And being a total paddle nerd, I pretty much begged to be involved with anything product development wise. And after a ton of asking and me giving a lot of input, they kind of gave me the shot to manage the brand and develop some products. And here we are.
I'm starting to hear that more now as people want to get into the industry, and I feel like I know a decent amount of people that also wanted to get into the paddle side, especially. What is your background with product, and then how did you get that role?
Yeah, so I actually don't have a huge background in product except for being an absolute gear junkie in like any of my hobbies. Like I used to be huge into a sport called disc golf, but I would spend more time like collecting discs and studying the bevels on the discs and what made them act like they did. And even like, designing our own discs for fun. I spend more time doing that than like playing disc golf. So when I discovered pickleball, like I wanted to soak up as much as I could about product. At that time in like 2020, 2021, there just wasn't much out there. So I just learned as much as I could, fell in love with like taking paddles apart and seeing what made them different. Um, and so my qualification is just probably like a ton of curiosity, and I'm just a paddle nerd at the end of the day.
That's You hear that so much though when people talk about successful people in a specific field. We'll talk about like curiosity is what like led them to where they were, but also if they could give advice to anyone, it would be curious about stuff. And I think it also ties into obsession. Like I don't know a single person who takes apart disc golf discs.
Yeah, if you ask my wife, it definitely borders on the line of obsession. It's tough when like your hobby is the same as your work because I call her or she calls me at like 7 p.m. and there's like pickleball in the background. It's like, oh babe, I'm working. That's a tough sell at times. So, but I do like really eat, sleep, breathe it. And I love it. Yeah, I'm on that obsessed, very curious borderline for sure.
Yeah. What is Versix? Like, where did they come from? I feel like a lot of people don't know. If you look at the social media, it's a pretty low like follower count. It's like, when was it founded? What is the background? What is the mission and the values of Versix?
Yeah, so initially Versix uh, was kind of lower cost products, kind of like some of the house brand products you would think, like a Kirkland brand at Costco, but for pickleball. And so we made some classic, simple fiberglass face paddles, and then moved into this here, which is our first like kind of performance paddle, which used at that time really common tech and still common today, just raw carbon fiber, a cold press paddle, and we just wanted to give players access to like a quality paddle that doesn't have a lot of frills at a really good price. So
How
now we
much was
sell this
this?
like Versix Raw for like $74.99, which just gives players getting into the sport instead of having to go through the route of like playing with a piece of junk that's not going to allow them to progress their game. it allows them to just go ahead and start playing well. So Versix really is like that intersection of price and performance. And we want all of our products to kind of meet that criteria.
Yeah. When was Versix started?
Versix initially got started right around during the pandemic with its first paddle. So late 2020, early 2021, and then the Raw about a year later, in 2022. So it hasn't been around for too long, and it really was just a slow start. Like the products really came before the brand. But as we got more products, we really found kind of who we wanted to be and have expanded the brand from there. And now with the launch of the Vector, it's really almost like everything's been building up to this moment of us finding out who we are. And really, I'm stoked that the Vector's like embodies exactly, what we want that to be. This is pro level performance. We got 2 pros on tour playing with it. It's no frills. It uses tech that's like 2.5 years old. But we just optimized everything we could in a package that anyone can buy so that anyone can like use what the best are using. We're really, really proud of this one.
Yeah. When Chris reached out to me and was like, hey, we want to send you a Versix Vector, this is what I remember seeing. And just no one talked about it. I didn't test it, so I didn't have a sense of, was it good, was it bad? But I never played with it. It didn't get any notoriety or hype. So I was like, okay, then everyone just kind of assumes that it was just like okay paddle. But then he sent me this, except he sent me the white one, and I wish I got the pink one. But sent me this, and I was coming off, like earlier this year, I used the Filth. I think earlier this year and some of last year, I used the Filth, and then the J2K. Those are the main 2 paddles that I've stuck with for over a month. And then I got this, and I was always curious about a 15 millimeter, and I actually really, really like the paddle. Like the shape, I was like, I guess we'll see about the shape. Then I felt it, and I was like, it makes sense. If it was maybe a hybrid shape, I don't know if they could have the combination of the traits and attributes that the paddle has. Because of like the forgiveness and the sweet spot, it makes sense with this particular shape. But also, it's great that it has like the long handle. Like, I love this paddle. Like, I really, really enjoy it. And I think what's really cool is just making it affordable. Different companies are going in different directions, where some companies are doing the exact same thing that other companies are, and they're charging more for the paddle. And for such a like a sport that's inclusive and so community driven, it's got so many people and so much momentum behind it. I feel like companies like this and products like this are just really important. What can you tell everyone about this paddle, and like how you're able to create something with so much value at such an affordable price?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm stoked that you like the paddle. We're definitely going to get you a pink one because we want you out there repping with like your style. I'm like I said, a paddle junkie. And when it came like time to develop a paddle, I was all ready to do like a half titanium, half Kevlar, experimental Gen 3.5 core paddle. Uh, but being who Versix is, that's not the direction we wanted to go. We didn't want to drive up our production costs, and we didn't want to pass those high costs of production on to the consumer. So we said, okay, let's take kind of the tried and true, what's been on the top of podiums for the past 2 years. What are tons of players resonating with, and how can we make that as good as possible? What are the small details that we can do that aren't going to raise prices and raise costs, that are going to give the most value? And since we made this paddle, primarily and designed it for Genie Bouchard, we said, okay, we want this handle to be as high quality as possible. We want it to have plenty of room for 2-handed backhands. We want the bevels to be sharp and people to feel connected to the paddle. So we ended up with this, 5 3/4 inch handle with incredible bevels that feels a lot like grabbing a tennis racket when you pick it up. Obviously players that aren't coming from tennis are still going to enjoy that just because it feels solid, and it gives them a little bit of understanding exactly where their hand is on the paddle. So I'm a handle snob. We're super stoked on the handle. And then you mentioned like the shape, how it is definitely a little different.
It's like a griddle.
It is kind of like a griddle. I love wide body paddles, actually.
Same.
That's usually what I play with. One of the reasons is they're just so forgiving, and they feel like they have a huge sweet spot from edge to edge. You're getting all that forgiveness, and we just wanted to kind of unlock as much of those characteristics as we could with the benefits of an elongated paddle. So we, took this space and gave it a long handle, but instead of tapering up slowly and wasting these bottom corners, we wanted to flare out as hard as we could, boost our twist weight, and give some forgiveness immediately. And then towards the top, we didn't want to taper in too much, kind of like that hybrid shape. We also wanted that forgiveness to push out to the corners. So we're just trying to maximize the performance of the paddle without using maybe more expensive kind of ingredients or materials.
You've kind of talked about that a couple of times now, how you had dreamt up like a titanium Kevlar paddle, and then also you were talking about materials to maybe produce something more high-end. Is there something in the works that will be up there?
As much as the paddle nerd in me wants there to be, Versix is going to continue to develop really high quality products, but we're not going to be the brand that's on the cutting edge of tech and materials. Our focus is really going to be providing just high quality, trusted, tested products to consumers at a really affordable price. I will continue to dream of my edgeless half and half titanium Kevlar weave, advanced paddles, or I should say, but that's really not the direction that Versix is going to go. And I kind of like that. I think there's a lot of players out there that they're not looking for the absolute best, the latest and greatest. That's really where we're going after with Versix. We just want people to be able to get quality products at a reasonable price.
That's cool. I mean, there's a ton of people. I mean, what's the largest market in pickleball? It's not the high-end players. It's the rec players, the people who either just started or they're just getting into it, and they're trying to find a paddle that isn't over $200. That's not going to break the bank. Not only that, there's also now pretty common knowledge amongst people who get into pickleball is how long is this paddle actually going to last? So am I going to have to pay $200 for a paddle that's going to be done in 3 months?
Yeah, that's the other kind of value prop is we don't want paddles to be seen as super disposable. So this will be, about as durable as most other constructions out there like it. But to us, charging, $200 plus for a paddle like this just didn't seem right.
Yeah.
That being said, I am a huge paddle nerd, and I'd be happy to,
Security came and got us. They kicked us out.
It's always scary when you're in a casino and two people in suits come up to you. Yeah, and if, we felt like it provided a ton of value to the consumer and it was tested and for sure going to be, legal and affordable, we'd consider it. But at this point in time, we know this Gen 2 thermoform carbon fiber paddle has the potential to play at the highest level. And we're going to make the best version of that paddle, which we feel like is the pinnacle of simple construction but high performance until, the next thing like that comes along.
This particular one is hella gritty. This is nice.
Yeah, that particular one is built for Genie and Blaine, and the PPA Tour has a higher grit tolerance than the USAP. So it's at 48 RT, so we're just under that, and we want to give our pros as much of an advantage as possible. Our production models, though, which I have one around here somewhere, you'll notice the grit's a lot finer, and it's not going to stick to your shirt. We're really committed to following the rules, doing things the right way, and producing the same paddles that we send in for testing to the USAP for the general public. So while this one is gritty and it's great and provides our pros a ton of spin, we've maxed out that limit for the USAP with our production models, and we still feel like that's giving really, really competitive spin, just in a legal way.
What is it like trying to design a product within the regulations as it seems to be constantly changing, remains pretty dynamic?
Yeah, because we're not working as much in the margins with new materials, it's a little bit easier for us. We can take kind of what's trusted, what's out there, and just optimize it. So working with factories to optimize, grit texture that's going to be legal and consistent across all of our models. That consistency is what can be difficult to work with, but we're really committed to that. But as far as keeping it legal, not as difficult for us, especially if we can get those consistent processes in place. There's definitely an interesting dialogue to be had, though, about the ever-changing rules of paddle certification and what's legal and what's not. With Versix, though, we don't have to toe that line as much.
That's interesting. Okay. You've talked about the lineup of sponsored players. You have Genie, you have Blaine. Is there anyone else that you guys are looking at? But also, if someone is interested and likes the idea of having a product and a sponsorship behind a brand that wants to create an affordable product and likes the idea of the mission and the movement, what do you guys look for in sponsoring a player?
Yeah, so especially here, Blaine and Genie are at like the pinnacle of our player sponsorships and partnerships. But at a more local level is actually where we kind of connect to our consumer more. So it's that teaching pro at the club that's talking to a lot of new players or players that are getting into the game. Oftentimes, the people that those professionals are interacting with are the best fits for Versix products because they're getting into it. They're really interested. They're not ready to drop a whole lot of money. The latest tech isn't what they're into. They just want something that's quality, going to be competitive, and affordable. So to those interested, especially those that are in the contact with those in the community like that, or maybe they're just, the ambassador at their local courts that always has paddles and is always letting new players try paddles. Those are actually the people that we're actively seeking out to partner with Versix because they're with our target demographic. So yeah, please reach out to us, any of our socials, and we would love to partner really with anybody interested.
Yeah. Do you guys have any other announcements that you want to make?
Honestly, right now we are full steam behind this new vector. We're just stoked for people to try it. Definitely can try it for 30 days. No questions asked, return it. And we're just here supporting Genie, supporting Blaine, and, getting this paddle in as many hands as we possibly can.
Oh, yeah. If people wanted to reach out to you, maybe they're interested in following your same path of being a product specialist, or maybe they want to get into the nitty-gritty of the vector on the paddle side. Shout out to all the paddle nerds. How could they reach out to you?
Yeah, so on the Versix side, definitely reach out to any of the Versix socials and you can find me. And I'm also at Pickleball Joseph on Instagram for just kind of like my personal paddle nerd explorations, because while I'm affiliated with Versix, I still absolutely love all of those new tech, products, experimenting, seeing what's out there. So you can find me there.
Dope. Dude, thanks a lot, man.
This was awesome. Thanks so much, Brian.
Good shit, dude.